Hello, I am Roy Harriman with Kansas City Hiker. It's a website dedicated to helping Kansas Cityans discover the woods and the wilds of greater Kansas City. There is more here than meets the eye, and that's appropriate to our conversation today, where I am joined by Dr. Todd Fristoe, a family physician with St. Luke's Physician Group. And our topic is no-see-ums, also known as ticks, chiggers, and other seemingly invisible menaces to those who love the outdoors. But ticks can be serious business, not just annoying. And so I wanted to bring in an expert to help us understand the actual level of risk and how to minimize those risks. So Dr. Fristoe, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Dr. Fristoe, what types of ticks are most abundant in our local environment? And the reason I ask that is I know not all ticks are equal in terms of carrying disease or threat of disease.
So in this area, I mean, there's all numerous species of ticks that just are in the United States. Okay, in this area, the ones that we kind of watch out for are one called the black-legged tick, or some people may have referred to that as the deer tick, which is a very small tick. Okay, and then there's another tick which is also small called the Lone Star tick. Okay, and then another one is your one that most of us are familiar with, which is the dog tick, which are the ones that get on dogs and they get real fat and fill up with blood. Okay, so those are probably the three major ones that are pertinent to carrying potential disease in this area. And there are other species of ticks out there as well, but those are the ones that I found that tend to be in this area.
So is there any particular one of those that is more at risk in carrying disease, or are all three of them possible culprits?
All three of them can carry disease, and if you might, I might refer to my notes here because I made some notes.
Sure.
That's okay. The black-legged tick, or the one that's common, maybe referred to as the deer tick, it can carry Lyme disease. Okay, but it can also carry another infection called ehrlichiosis, or even potentially Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Okay, and then the other tick, the Lone Star tick, doesn't carry Lyme disease near as much, but it can carry another tick disease called ehrlichiosis, and also can carry a tick-borne disease called tularemia, which is fairly rare. And then this southern tick-associated rash illness. So that's the Lone Star tick. And the dog tick is probably the least serious, and it may carry something called tularemia, which actually can come from rabbits or animals that the tick was on, and then maybe got on the dog. So those are the main illnesses that we may see in this area related to the ticks that we can see.
So say we notice a tick or we don't pick it off. What are symptoms that we need to be concerned about, where we need to seek medical attention?
Okay, so I think the disease that most people are most fearful of is Lyme disease, which interestingly is not the most common tick-borne disease in our area. Lyme disease is carried by that first tick I mentioned, and it may be initially manifest by what we call a bullseye rash, where you pull a tick off, and then between 3 to 14 days later, you may see a rash with a little red in the center, a little clearing, and then red around the outside. And you would certainly want to seek medical attention for that to see whether you should be placed on treatment or not. Okay. And sometimes tick-borne illnesses will not cause a rash. Like, for instance, the other two I mentioned, the ehrlichiosis, will not cause a rash, but 3 to 10 days or 14 days later after being bitten by a tick, you may just start feeling really achy, muscle aches, fevers, chills, nausea, vomit, a whole bunch of things, a whole bunch of symptoms. And you may think you just have a virus, but if you have a history of a tick bite and you feel that poorly, it's probably a good idea to be evaluated by your provider. Now, the Rocky Mountain spotted fever will sometimes be manifest by a rash, but it's not a bullseye rash. So if you have a tick bite and have a weird rash all over your body, fevers, chills, achiness, headaches, all those things, those could potentially be those tick-borne illnesses that we see. But on the flip side, the confusing thing about this is there are so many other infections that present the exact same way, with fevers, chills, headaches, and muscle aches. So if you take in the history of being in the woods or having a tick bite, then your suspicion raises a little higher for those potential tick-borne diseases.
If you have symptoms, unusual symptoms, and you do seek medical attention, it sounds like it's important to mention if you've had tick bites or been in wooded areas, just so that's in the frame of reference of your medical.
Excellent point there. And if you are an outdoorsman, hunter, hiker, like to be outdoors, spend time at the lakes, that's really important history to provide to your care provider, because that helps them kind of think, oh, maybe I ought to consider a tick-borne illness there. And that just kind of is a good collaborative approach. Always better to get checked. And there are, if your doctor or provider is not available, there are convenient care clinics in the area that you can get evaluated more quickly. So those are options as well.
Is the concern about Lyme disease and tick-borne illnesses, is it possibly overblown or overstated, or do you have any thoughts on that?
I think the incidence, like the number of cases, might be a bit overblown. But on the other side, the seriousness of the illnesses is not overblown, because they can be serious illnesses and do require medical treatment and attention. I looked back and did a little research. I couldn't find the most recent data, but to give you an idea, in Jackson County, okay, from 2016 to 2019, there was, I believe, 29 cases or 29 or 30 of ehrlichiosis, 10 cases of Lyme. These were reported, and I think about 25 to 30 of the Rocky Mountain spotted fever. So in a population of a county of around 750,000, that's not a high incidence. So it's not like it's every time you get a tick, you're going to get infection. But being aware that it could happen in the proper setting of a tick bite and then symptoms, you don't want to ignore those symptoms, because these illnesses can be potentially serious. Does that help? Does that kind of help clarify that?
Sure. No, it does. Yeah. It's kind of like, the numbers aren't huge, but you don't want to be one of the numbers, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Exactly right. Just, don't be frightened to go do things, but just be aware and pay attention to what's going on with your body.
Okay. So, this next question, it may sound fairly simple, but it's good to know, what are appropriate ways to reduce the chances of getting tick bites?
Okay, so especially for people that love to be outdoors, like if you go on hiking trails, and this sounds kind of simple, but try to stay in the middle of the trail and stay away from the brush if you can. I know people like to explore, and that's a good thing. We need to be in nature, and that's very positive. But if you're just going for an exercise walk, try to stay more in the middle of the trail than on the brush. That's one simple thing that you can do to reduce risk. There are some preventive measures that are commercially available. You can buy clothing that is infused with something called permethrin, okay? And that can reduce the ticks from getting on your clothing and eventually getting to your skin, okay? You can also buy over-the-counter permethrin sprays that you can spray on your clothing, okay? Those are available. So that's something you can do there. And then you have to wash the clothing afterwards, obviously. And if used properly, those are generally safe products. Okay. And then there's the insect and tick repellents that you can place on your skin. And one of them that's most commonly used and has been looked at and analyzed and looked at for safety is the DEET, DEET. Very effective, probably generally the most effective insect and tick repellent if used appropriately. And you always want to read the directions. And you can apply it on all your skin. Okay. There's varying degrees of percentages of strength of DEET. Normally 30% is adequate for most protection. You don't want to put it around the mouth or in the eyes or on an open sore or a cut. So that's available. And then if you like to do more than natural type products, there's something called oil of lemon of eucalyptus. Ticks don't like citrus or eucalyptus. That's a very safe product that can also reduce the chance of a tick getting on your skin and, attaching. Okay. And there's various other ones too. I would suggest you might want to refer your listeners to the EPA website. And there's like 6 different things that are approved and safe for insect repellent and tick repellent.
Excellent. I'm glad we asked this question, because those are definitely a few new things. Now, the clothing that is infused with, I believe you said permethrin, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does that really work?
It reduces risk. The ticks don't like it, and it does reduce the risk, but it doesn't protect your skin. So you still need to put a repellent on your skin too. Okay. So all those things together do help.
Does the uh, the natural versus the DEET? Does one seem to be more effective than the other, or do you know?
When I looked at the recent studies that were done on the DEET tends to be the most effective in general. But I know people would maybe want to do a more natural product. And like I said, those six that I just mentioned were EPA approved and have been studied and all have effectiveness. There may be varying levels of effectiveness, and nothing is 100%, unfortunately, but those can all reduce risk.
Yeah, and then just another practical aside is, I know if it's really hot and you're sweating a lot, then you've probably got to stop and reapply.
Yeah,
So
some of the products you have to read the instructions. Some you have to reapply after 2 hours. Some will stay on your skin up to 10 hours. And I think that's product specific and dependent on how it's produced. And I don't have that information handy to me right now.
sure, no problem. Well, I know that DEET is pretty potent because I actually I had some poor packing and ended up unknowingly getting it on my toothbrush, and so I was brushing my teeth with the DEET, and I was like, this is the most really electrifying toothpaste I've ever experienced. And then I realized, and yeah, it took 12 hours to get that out of my mouth. So maybe that's how long it lasts. So yeah, don't do that. That won't help. Let me ask you a question that I just have it based on anecdote, not on any science, but just on personal experience. So it seems like some people are much more susceptible to ticks latching onto them than others. So for example, I went on a walk with two of my sons who went to the same place. I didn't get any ticks, and then one of my sons had more than 30. Is there something going on there?
Well, they've actually been looked at. I think there was a study done in Eastern Europe or something somewhere. And one of them was they were looking at blood types. And ticks seem to favor type A blood, and then O, and then AB, and then they like B the least. But that doesn't guarantee you're not going to get them. And then there's some things that you can't really measure, like someone's just natural body odor or pheromones may attract ticks versus others, or your body temperature or your breath or things like that. And there's really no way to study or quantify that because you can't really measure that. But there is some things out there that the experts would say there might be certain body types and just your general, not that you're not clean, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But everybody emits different pheromones, that it might be that, but nobody really knows for sure on that. But the blood type thing I looked at several different sites on that, and that's a possibility. So if you're A blood, you might want to be a little more careful and protect yourself a little more. But like I said, that's kind of what I have learned.
Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you. Dr. Fristoe, what other types of insects around the Kansas City area do we really need to have like an awareness of? Obviously, not a lot of people like bugs, except, entomologists, but are there others that we need to have an awareness of just in terms of personal safety?
Just being aware of mosquitoes. I mean, mosquitoes, you hear about these dramatic cases of, encephalitis from mosquitoes. Those infections are terribly serious, no question. They're not common, but the things that we just talked about for, protection, if you're going to be out in a water area where there could be a lot of mosquitoes or bugs, which they tend to like, just do these protective things, and that can reduce your risk of those things. Chigger bites are more annoying than anything else. They don't really cause disease. They're just very uncomfortable, and these things will help reduce the risk of that as well. And then these products and these measures will also reduce the chance of spider bites as well, which, like I said, you hear the dramatic stories of spider bites, which they can be serious, but they're not that terribly common either. So, but those are kind of the main insects that we see around here.
It sounds, Dr. Fristoe, it sounds like you're very up on people getting out and enjoying the outdoors, but simply just having some precautions in the back of the mind or as part of the plan.
Yeah, and and just other things. If people are reluctant to, and this would be not necessarily so much around here, but, if you're a camper, you like to camp at night, make sure you have proper mosquito netting and things like that. Those things like that will help as well. If you like to be outdoors all night, because mosquitoes like to be out at night, it seems like.
Yes. Yeah. You definitely don't want to be exposed all night for that. So, well, excellent. This has been very helpful. Thank you for giving us some of your day here.